Hello, and welcome to a short special Halloween episode of When Animals Attack podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Nilo.
And today we're going to talk about rat attacks.
Yeah.
So, Nilo, you've had a personal encounter, is that correct?
I have. I had a very strange, kind of kid-oriented story to tell. I was 11 years old with my cousin, and we were very competitive growing up. Everything turned into a competition, and for whatever reason, in this house that we had lived in for a while, we had never gone up into the attic, and we were just like teasing each other, like, yeah, you've never been in the attic, or you should go up there. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But then I eventually was like, all right, I'll do it. Like I was pretended I was brave. And we very slowly go over there, and I've got a broomstick, and I move the door. It's just like a latch thing in the ceiling. And as I move it along, I see that there's a very large rat waiting, like looking down on us with red eyes and nibbling on something. And
corpse.
Yeah, it was definitely some sort of it must have been, I don't know. And so we, screamed very loudly as this rat then retreated. And I ran outside, and my entire family thought that we had discovered an actual corpse,
like
a human corpse. The screams were so shrill and devastating that they were convinced that something absolutely horrific had happened. But really, I was just terrified of a large rat.
Yeah.
And they're pretty gross.
There's something about anything being above you as well. I think that's my main issue with spiders. If I see them on the ground, I'm kind of like, whatever for the most part, although I do have some creepy stories. But, if they are coming down from the ceiling on your head, that's horrible.
Yeah, they have special, a special ability to, that's like their one of their advantages,
Yeah, and it's a creepy one. So yeah, finding a rat in the ceiling, I think is so much worse than finding a rat on the ground. Because, you could just, kick it or step on it or something, it falls on your face.
Oh my god, it was so scary. I think that's probably why I screamed so loud, because I was terrified that it was going to jump on me.
Yeah.
And if it had, then, I probably wouldn't be here today. I don't know.
So, it turns out rats don't often attack live humans except in situations where they feel threatened, or if someone is kind of on the ground and unable to move. There have been a few examples, but for the most part, rats, although they've gotten a bad rep for carrying plague and such. And in fact, if you hang out in the Sierras, if you go camping at Yosemite, for instance, there are signs all over the place warning you about the hantavirus. So it's actually mice, I think, mostly, and rats that still carry those. So you have to be really careful not to breathe in mouse shit or rat shit in Yosemite, because you can get the fucking hantavirus.
Wow.
So yeah, they carry disease for sure.
Yeah.
But they mostly aren't gonna eat you. That said, we did find a couple stories for you. So,
yeah.
Nilo, want to start us off?
Yeah. So something that happened last year in France, in a small town called Roubaix. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. It was a family in I think it was a 2-story home. The father of the family said he put his daughter, who's paraplegic, to sleep on the ground floor, and then he went upstairs to sleep in his bedroom with with his 2 other kids. And then apparently she was attacked by a bunch of rats, because the rats were living they're next to a garbage bin that was not really taken care of. And she was like, I guess it bit her fingertips, and, you know, she was just, like, covered in blood. And the dad came downstairs and he thought that she was having, like, a brain hemorrhage. But she was just, you know, she was maimed and bitten, like, over 100 times. And, but, you know, she's essentially defenseless because she's paraplegic and likely couldn't, you know, I mean, obviously couldn't run away from them.
Yeah.
So that was pretty bad. I guess surgeons couldn't do any repair of any, like, because it bit her fingertips, which is weird.
Yeah. That's rough.
Like nibbling on her fingertips, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, they moved and they had to sue the landlord. It sounds nasty.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones I have are pretty rough, too. This past July, so very recently in the UK, apparently, according to, like, multiple kind of tabloidy British newspapers, so take all of this with a large grain of salt, quote, a colossal plague of rats is spreading through the UK and wreaking havoc as a result of the longest heat wave in nearly 50 years. So they weren't really attacking people, but it's just there were huge rats and
I mean, the size
numbers.
Of small cub bears. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures right now, and it is.
Yeah, I mean,
very upsetting.
Assuming they're real, they're this, like, larger than my cat. Like, one of these rats, someone described as being larger than his dog, his terrier.
Oh,
like 4 feet long. That's ridiculous. So, you know, apparently they're just kind of, like, everywhere. It was a huge infestation, so they were just having to take drastic measures in terms of pest control, but I don't think anyone was actually harmed. However, we did find a few cases from South Africa where, unfortunately, children were attacked. So, in one case, this was 2 years ago, a 3-month-old baby girl was apparently attacked and killed by large rats in Johannesburg while her mother was out with friends. So, according to witnesses, the child had been maimed and partially eaten with her tongue, eyes, and fingers all completely gnawed off. So, I guess they go for the fingers.
Yeah.
And, you know, additional horrific bite marks all over her body. I guess she has a sister who was unharmed, but the mother was allegedly arrested for child neglect. So that's pretty depressing. And a few years prior to that, also in South Africa, a 3-year-old girl who lived with her family outside of Cape Town was sleeping on the floor next to her parents when she was apparently killed and eaten by, quote, humongous rats, which devoured much of her body and gouged out her eyes. And another infant was killed by rats in the town of Soweto near Johannesburg. And a 77-year-old woman was also purportedly savaged and killed by large rats near Cape Town as well. So I don't know what it is with South Africa. In most of these cases, according to the sources we found, which again are mostly like tabloidy, the culprit is believed to be the African giant pouched rat, which is a particularly large species native to the area. Although no one's providing an explanation as to why they've become so overtly predatory. Another place that has had some attacks is Pakistan, where, quote, cat-sized rats have been crawling from the sewers to prowl about and occasionally attack humans. According to some sources, between 5 and 8 children have been killed by the ravenous rats, including an 8-month-old infant. So, you know, again, like as in many cases of animal attacks, children are the most vulnerable, as are older people with disabilities, people who have any sort of mobility issue who are vulnerable, like the girl you were talking about, and these very small children, they're just lying on the floor and unable to really move out of the way. So it's pretty horrifying, and honestly it makes me think of the scene from 1984, if you've read the book or seen the movie, where like John Hurt's character's worst fear is rats, and so they torture him. But have you seen it?
I haven't seen. I don't remember that scene.
It's rough. So spoiler alert. But like they torture him by putting this giant like box on his face and then letting a rat into it. And so the rat's only way out is to like eat its way through his face. So that's awful and a nightmare. Most people are not going to find themselves in that kind of situation, so you don't really have to worry too much about it. And in fact, many people have rats as pets. They're smart and they can be
trained,
quite lovable.
Yeah, they can be totally trained and housebroken, and it's really interesting actually. I have a friend who had a rat named Ratty. And its little tail would just wrap around his arm when he was a kid. Apparently, he loved him, and he also had. And my friend also had a rat tail. I think he had a thing.
Like he wore the hairstyle rat tail.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. Maybe he's like Willard.
Oh my god!
So that's probably the most well-known rat attack movie. I mean, there's the 1971 version, and then I think we've both seen the Crispin Glover version. Do you remember anything about that one?
Other than it just being tremendously creepy, and it sort of reminding me of Psycho.
Yeah, I can see that.
The relationship between him and his mom.
Yeah.
And also the movie with Michael Douglas called, I think, Going Down or Downward or something like that.
Going Down.
Sorry. No, but, basically a guy who is, like, can't get a break, and it just, like, his whole life devolves because he, like, loses his job and then becomes obsessional and, like, unpredictable.
Does that involve rats?
No, it doesn't, but I was just drawing a correlation.
Well, that reminds me of a different rat movie that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, because I think rat movies tend to fall into one of a few categories, one of which is like people losing their minds.
Yeah.
So it's like you're in a space and you can't deal with the rat, so I'm going to talk about Of Unknown Origin as an example of that, where it's almost like you don't know if they're losing their mind or if the rat is a real threat. And then there's the just like swarm plague rats, which like everything from Nosferatu and Bram Stoker's Dracula and whatever, Willard maybe falls into that category. And the third would be like giant rats, which is the most rare, I think. But I have an example of that as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Willard, I think it's mostly effective because Crispin Glover is such a legit creeper.
Yeah,
like
it really is. Yeah,
I mean, I love him so much in Friday the 13th Part 4. Like, there's this amazing cover band isn't the word. Like, what would you call it? Like a fan band called Happy Campers in 3D, where they write songs about Friday the 13th and stuff. I don't know what you call it.
It's not a fan band. It's called like a tribute band.
Yeah. They're kind of like a tribute band. And they have this amazing song they wrote called Dead Fuck. That's all about this, this scene from Part 4 where, like, he says, Crispin Glover's character says his girlfriend broke up with him because he was a dead fuck, quote unquote, and he has the most amazing dance scene partway through that film, which I feel like we should post a clip of.
Yeah.
Even though it has nothing to do with animal attacks, but it's amazing. And so I love him for that. And he also, he directs, I can't think of the name of the film right now, I'll look it up in a second. He directed the craziest film ever made, where it's like the whole movie is him carrying around a dead cat in a cooler, like lost in the desert, basically. It's so weird.
Huh.
It's so weird. Anyway.
He directed a movie that he also starred
yes,
in? Okay.
In which he carries a dead cat around in a cooler, and that's like kind of the extent of plot in the movie. It's so weird. Anyway,
I'm interested.
And he's a creep in real life. Like, not to, I feel like we could get arrested for slander or something, but I have a story. A friend of mine experienced him being a creep, like when she was, I think 13, 14, she and a friend were out walking around in the LA area, and he invited them inside, and so they got to see his weird house.
What was it like?
They said it was super weird. I don't remember the details, and also, again, I don't want to get arrested for slander, but apparently he is a legit weirdo, and you said you've encountered him.
I've just seen him around town on a bicycle wearing a brown tweed suit, like it was very striking, and then I looked more closely and it was Crispin Glover. Like it, he's he's definitely a weirdo about town.
I mean, I don't want to talk trash about weirdos in general.
Yeah, I love weirdos. I mean, I like his movies, and
I'm a weirdo, but there's that line between weirdo and creep.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the human Crispin Glover falls on that, but most of Crispin Glover characters definitely veer over into the creep category. I watched 2 Rat Attack movies recently. Of Unknown Origin, I would definitely recommend. It's basically, I read it described somewhere as kind of a combo between the Roman Polanski apartment films, like he did that trilogy, Rosemary's Baby and Repulsion, which is one of my favorite
I know,
movies.
I was thinking about Repulsion as we were talking, because there was like, how you lose your mind in a small space.
And the tenants. So like if you basically took one of those movies, like you take Repulsion and then add like schlocky horror elements to it, and you have this film. So it's basically Peter Weller losing his shit for 90 minutes. Like, he starts out as this classic yuppie with this ridiculous house in New York. It literally looks like a castle. And he's got his wife, and his like secretary wants him to, like he's just full materialist, wants to get ahead in his corporate bullshit job. So his family goes out of town, and this rat, he proceeds to have like a one-on-one, like full-on war with the rat, and he uses lots of war language. It's really, like he's really weird about it. And
it's just one rat?
Yeah, and he just like can't catch it. Yeah, like pest control guys, like, here's what you gotta do, and nothing works. And it like appears to be taunting him. He puts out a trap, and it like chews up the trap and stuff. So he feels like the rat has a vendetta, and so he has a vendetta against the rat. And as the movie goes on, it's like you can't quite tell, is this really happening? At a certain point, it seems to be saying that yes, it's really happening, but like he's also legit losing his mind regardless. Like, he starts showing up at corporate parties and just like dropping weird facts about rats into conversation, and it's pretty great. So
that seems very silly. Was it mostly funny, or is it?
I think so. I think it's mostly funny. So if you want to see RoboCop versus Rat, check out Of Unknown Origin. And then the other one I watched, which I showed Nilo a clip of, is Deadly Eyes. This one's harder to find. Scream Factory did do a Blu-ray, but now it's really expensive and hard to find. So I just watched a shitty version on YouTube. So the quality sucks, but it's still worth watching. It's like mostly about these giant rats invading a city, and mostly in a subway. And yet at the same time, it's also about this like middle-aged high school teacher who's a divorced dad who like falls in love with this rat expert woman. so it's like he's finding love again or something. So both of these films end up having these like really family-friendly messages, because Of Unknown Origin, spoiler alert, ends with him realizing how much he cares about his family, and he like literally destroys his house in order to finally overcome the rat problem to win out. And in the end, he's happy. It's sort of like he's kind of given up his materialism. And in Deadly Eyes, it's totally like, oh, this divorced dad finds love again. But there's a weird subplot where this like babe of a high school student she's supposed to be, 17, but I think she's played by someone who's 30 in true, like, 90210 style. So this, like, hot babe just, like, starts stalking him. She shows up naked in his bed.
All right.
And he's like, what are you doing? And then his crush shows up and she's like, oh my god, So it's like manufactured intrigue to plump out this story. Is that the word I'm looking for?
To fill it out?
Fill out, the story.
I like plump better.
Plump out the story of giant rats attacking people. But my favorite thing about it by far, as you saw in the scene I showed, is that the rats are played by Dachshunds. Or dachshunds.
Yeah.
Sorry, I always say dachshunds.
That's fine.
In rat costumes. So
it was pretty awesome and very
really
obvious.
Funny.
Very, very obvious. And so it actually made their, I don't know, it just made them so cute. Because they're wearing costumes. They're wearing, like, rat tail they're dogs.
They move like dachshunds.
Yeah,
so
they
like
move
shaking
like
their little butt.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was very fun to see them run in kind of a small herd or gang.
Yes. And then devouring someone.
Yeah.
So I would recommend both of those if you're into some rat attacks. We were going to do Bats for Halloween, but I'm waiting for the release of Nightwing, which is a classic film that I think we need to watch before covering Bats. So we'll do Bats at a later date. This is just a little mini Halloween
a little mini version we put together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll be back with a full episode soon in maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're trying to do every 2 weeks.
Yeah, every 2 weeks, yeah.
Jen, am like full in the thick of teaching, so that's gotten in the way of podcasting a little bit.
Yeah, and I just got back from a little vacay, so I'm back in town now.
Yeah. So, I guess thanks for listening, everyone. And if you want to get in touch with us, especially if you have an animal attack story to share, or anything like that, you just want to tell us a story, you can send us an audio file or a text file, or you can say, hey, I want to call into the show, or whatevs. You can email us at whenanimalsattackpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at whenanimalsattackpod. No, wait.
Is it?
It's the other way around. It's whenanimalsattackpod@gmail.com. When Animals Attack Podcast on Instagram. When Animals Attack Pod on Facebook. And our Twitter, which we rarely use because I hate Twitter, is Animal Attack Pod. Yes, at Animal Attack Pod. So you can slide into our DMs, you can shoot us an email, or just give us a follow. We love that.
Yeah.
And we extra appreciate if you could take a minute to just subscribe, rate, and even review us, especially on iTunes, but on whatever platform you use to listen to us if you're enjoying the show.
Yeah.
That would help a lot.
That'd be awesome.
So, in the meantime, stay safe out there.
And don't feed the rats.
With your corpse.
Thanks, mate.